Hey, everybody. We want to welcome you back if you're tuning in again for the second time. Want to welcome you if this is your first time tuning in at Rich and Wellness Workshops. I'm Roddia Paul.
And I am Shola Cargill. Welcome to the space.
So this week, we're kind of just continuing on our focus of self-care, and we want to pinpoint this month on the different aspects of self-care, because that's really like our umbrella. And then there's all these different aspects that we have to attend to when it comes to ourselves, of course, as an individual and as a collective. In honor of that, today we want to talk about emotional and physical healing and what that looks like if we're trying to focus on our self-care as action-based forms of behavior. So with doing that, I think it's important for us to try and break down right now, what is emotional wellness, right? And this is something different for everyone because, of course, as we've been saying, self-care is very personal. So what I may find as being well, Shola may not find. So for me, I would probably define that as being in a state of being able to cope with your emotions, being able to cope with um, challenges. I think being a part of this world means that we are going to be met with adversity, right? No matter how good we're doing, how much light we're putting into the world, it's just a part of being human. But being able to understand, okay, I have this adversity and have things in place to help you cope with that, to me, that means you're emotionally well, right? So, for example, um, maybe what we're talking about, just understanding that, okay, I'm in school and I'm a student because Shola and I are students, and that is a very overwhelming and hectic process. But we have put stuff in place, whether that's finding cohort family, whether that's taking a walk and finding sun for the day, whether that's deciding I'm not going to do homework on Sundays, putting stuff to keep us emotionally sound. And what might that look like if I didn't have those things in place, right? And again, this looks different for everyone. But for me, some examples of that would be, for one, I think I have very low compassion for self, very low ideals of self-acceptance, self-love when I'm feeling emotionally unwell. I think it really affects my ability to relate to other people. Like, I can't connect with anyone if I'm not connected to myself, right? I think maybe being very, very easily to feel angered or maybe feel irritated, being very low of patience, having low gratitude. So being unable to find silver linings or things to be thankful for, because we're kind of focused on all the bad stuff going on, right? And I think the last and maybe most important one, because I keep trying to push this, is having very high apathy. We're trying to fast from that, y'all. So just being very high in apathy and just really not finding that intrinsic motivation, I think, are ways, at least for me, that I see that. So I challenge you to think about that for yourself, to find wellness for yourself in an emotional state, for one. And then for two, what might that look for you if you weren't in that state? Or maybe you're currently not in that state, and what is coming up for you because of that? And I think one of the main things that you'll see is there are a lot of physical stuff to that, right? So Shola, like, can you talk about that more for us? How is that connected there?
Of course, I mean that mental, physical connection, emotional connection is so strong and it's so deep. And a lot of what you were saying, Rodia, I mean, just thinking about how it can extend, in terms of that apathy, right? That motivation. At times you may not even feel like getting up and getting out of the bed. And so what is the effect on your physical? And so for physical wellness, it's really, again, being personalized, but really getting to a point where you can say, okay, what is my body feeling? How is my body feeling? And what do I want it to feel like if I don't feel like it's working or performing in optimal ways? So for me, physical wellness can mean just having the ability to be healthy, whether that means nutritionally healthy, making sure that you're eating a balanced diet, making sure that you're drinking water, making sure that you're moving, you're exercising, doing something that continues to invoke some sort of fire in your body, right? And so achieving that physical wellness can look so different for so many people. Some people get up and they're at the gym at 7 a.m. Other people I see,
Them.
right? Some people, they get up and they go walking, right? Other people, they do yoga. The first thing that some people do is drink water. Some people fast until 12 o'clock. So, I mean, it can look so different. And just like Roddia is saying, getting in tune with those physical emotions and those physical feelings can also help you create that self-care plan that is personal to you. And for me, even, just thinking about, some personal ways that I try to make sure I'm physically well is drinking my water. Like, okay, this is a necessity. I mean, because think about it, our body is made up of water. Like, the majority of our cells need water to rejuvenate. We need water to feel like we're moving, we're flowing. And that also allows us to get rid of waste that is not supposed to be in our bodies anymore. So again, making sure that we're doing those little things that have a huge impact on our physical wellness. Um, Another thing, I'm a yoga instructor. So for me, yoga helps with that mobility, but it also helps to bridge that connections to the emotions. I've had days where I'm on the mat, and like you were saying, Roddia, I feel like so low, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't hold myself up. And then when I get on the mat and I'm doing a push up, or I'm holding in myself in a plank, I'm like, wow, I can do this. And so even using that body to reframe and re-energize your mind. So something that you can do, I mean, we've been talking about it here and there, is creating a list. So create a list for yourself of things that you can do to increase that emotional and physical wellness. So Roddia, what does your list look like?
I'm glad you asked. I actually started making a list, y'all, because we're doing this with you. We're not just here. We're doing this with you because we are all in this together. We all have adversity. We all are human. We all have experiences. So we're making this list with you. And I actually started to make a list for myself and figure out what I felt like I needed. And for me, I think if I had to come up with two to three things to put on my list for now, I'd probably be reflecting on how I feel, getting in tune with my emotions and how am I currently feeling, especially in light of everything going on right now, COVID-19, the election, what's going on with police violence in the Black community. There's just, I think, a lot of heavy stuff going on that are impacting me day to day, even if I don't take time to think about it. So giving myself space to reflect on how I'm really feeling. And then once I reflect on how I feel, giving myself space to feel that, because I think sometimes, especially, for the staff watching, we feel like we have to show up for these youth so much that we kind of bottle how we're really feeling. So give myself space to feel that by expressing it. I'm a poet, so writing poetry, I draw, paint, just different stuff that I feel like I can express myself and sort of let go of that. So I'm not carrying it around into my sessions, into my social life, really giving myself space to feel. And then the last thing, which I think anyone can do, even if they don't find themselves as an artist or a creative, is journaling, right? So just writing down how you feel. And even if you reflect back on something, right? And maybe in the moment you felt like, I felt angry because that was the strongest feeling you had. You might go back and write it down and realize, well, I also felt relieved, or maybe I felt a little hint of worry or anxious, or, sometimes I think different stuff come up as we reflect back on past experiences. So I really think that those three things are, for me, things that I can do to really get in tune with my emotional needs and how I can create self-care based actions for that. And so, of course, those are my three things, but someone else watching may be like, I would not do any of those. And that's okay. But that's why you make the list to figure out, what are your things. And it doesn't have to be three. I just started with three. You can have less, more, whatever you feel called to do. I think just write that down is as in the first step, and then challenge yourself to actually engage in them would be the second, right?
Yes, that's very deep, right? Because you can write it down, but then you got to get the body moving. You got to get up. You got to do it, right? You got to get the pen moving. You got to be at a space where you're able to just take that time for yourself. You're able to just sit in your corner and do the things that are necessary for your emotions. And it's the same thing for that physical health. that physical wellness. And, for me, then this is more of a general list, but it is something that I try to follow and live by in terms of just lifestyle choices. And for me, it's drinking water daily. Like I said, I have my water right here. Even throughout sessions, throughout the day, you have to drink water. I have to be able to continue to feel hydrated and be hydrated, because that allows my thoughts to flow, that allows me to not get long-winded at times. And so it allows you to, again, like I said, take the time to rejuvenate yourself. And even with drinking water, sometimes I find that I don't drink enough a day. And you're probably like, well, how do you know what's enough, Shola? You know, just some things that, again, I do to keep me on track is if I've eaten something and I still feel hungry, but I haven't had anything to drink, it's probably more thirst than hunger. Yes, like that's probably it. If you're even saying to yourself, man, I'm thirsty, that's an indicator that you're already dehydrated, like then and there. So just try to refill and refuel as much as you can throughout the day. If you want to have a bottle, I know they sell these huge bottles in like Marshalls or Walmart or whatever that has the meters of saying, okay, you're having this much today, you drink a little bit more, like you're doing great, keep going. And then, you get to the bottom and it's like, you did it, like you drank all that water. And that's how important it is. Something else that I love to do is a stretch. Before I even get out of my bed, like I'm stretching in the bed, because it's just like, okay, let me get this sleep off, let me get my body and my blood flowing, let's get ready. And if that means, like I said, you get out of the bed and you just do a head to toe, stretch your hands up, touch your toes, do it 3 or 4 times, you're good for the day. And then again, throughout the day, now that we're home, we're sitting often, we're in all these meetings, it's important to, make those moments and take the time to do that throughout the day as well. And like I said, earlier, I was outside walking, that's also something that can kind of go into this stretch, right? This moving. You can stretch while you walk, it's little things. And then the last thing for me is balanced meals. And I'm not talking about the food triangle. We have to start to unlearn that food pyramid that we were taught when we were younger. Because honestly, the balance, and again, it's very personalized. What your diet looks like can be so different from what the next person's diet looks like. And so really the key is to have a balance in vitamins and nutrients. So how can you get those vitamins and nutrients? Making sure that you're paying attention to different items, making sure you're paying attention to the calorie content, and not even the calorie content, but the nutritional content of it, right? How is this filling me? How is this fueling me? How is this giving me energy that I need to continue to do all of the things that I have to do on my plate? So for me, those are my main 3. Again, like Roddia said, feel encouraged and empowered to create your own 3. And it doesn't have to be 3, but ideally we want to have some options to lean on. And honestly, and this is why we're doing this anyway, the whole purpose of this is to show you why it's important to break down those pieces of your self-care. Because, just between the 2 of us, we've already come up with 6 items of 6 self-care. You never, you don't realize it, but it can come as easy as that. But it also shows how important it is to take the time to separate those elements so that you can give them some separate space, because some days you may not be able to do all 6. Some days you can only do 2 or 3, but you at least have that list so that you can refer back to it. You can make sure that you're attending to your needs. And another thing too is it can look different depending on the day. One day you may need to fast until 12 because you're just, you're feeling a little sluggish. You want to make sure you release some waste, so maybe that day you don't eat until 12. The next day you're like, okay, I'm ready for pancakes. I'm ready for my fruit. I'm ready for my coffee, my tea. And that's fine. And that is completely fine, right? So again, allowing yourself to be flexible within this plan is so key. So what do we have for homework for our viewers watching, Roddia?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I think it's really important to realize how hard it may be if you've never done this before to really think about one, what you need, and then two, to write it down, and then three, to hold yourself accountable enough to engage in it. So the homework is going to be the hardest part of it all, is writing it down, right? So we want to challenge you to make that list. And with making that list, that you do separate your emotional from your physical needs. Although they are interconnected, what you may need to do to feed them both can be very different. So when you're writing that down, make a point to separate them, and then realize after you finish that list, you've done the hardest part. The hardest part is writing it down, right? And so we really want to challenge you to do that, and really attend to what you need as an individual. If something we said, by all means, if what we said is like something that you would love to do, write it down. Don't work too hard if you don't have to.
Right.
But if this is not something you would do, we do want you to really think about what you need and write that down, and realize the more options you have, the better. Because like Shola said, you may wake up one day and feel like, actually, that doesn't serve me anymore. I need to think of something else, or try something else, or do something else. And so it's good to have that option, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, options allow for flexibility. You know, if you wake up and your toolkit only has 3 items in it and they're only geared towards physical, that may not be enough for you. So definitely take the time today to create that list, those separate items, separate those items, and separate what you need, and check in too. Because how do you even make that list, right? Check in just today. Use today as an example. What do I need today for my emotions and for my physical?
Yeah. And then definitely also to that, just remember that this is not a one and done list, right? So I don't think because you write these maybe 6 things down, you're stuck with them forever, right? Because we are never, ever changing people. You know what I mean? So what we might want to do this year, next year might not work for us. So I don't think because you wrote these 6 down, you're glued to them. You can add to it as you go, as you learn, as you further understand yourself. Feel free to just add to it, but definitely start with something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Roddia.
Oh, thank you. Thank y'all. Like,
Oh, thank y'all, family.
meeting us here today in this space. We are winding down, but I also wanted to share that although we do have a set agenda, as you can see on our YouTube page, if you ever had a question or wanted maybe something for us to incorporate, we do have our email on there. So you can email us at our Gmail. And we just want to thank you guys all for tuning in with us today. These are going to become more brief and more brief, but we do invite you to write us, to comment on the YouTube wall, to comment in the sections, so we can be as connected and make sure that we're really giving you guys what you feel like you need, right? We don't want to just be given anything. So anything else you wanted to add, Shola?
That's it. You closed it. That was awesome.
I love it here. So we're going to close out, guys, and we just want to let you know that we'll be here same time, same place next week, as always. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and week.
All righty. Have a great one.